The North Atlantic Treaty Organization now boasts 32 member nations. Sweden is officially part of the military alliance. The Swedish flag was raised today over the organization's headquarters in Brussels. The Nordic country had a long-standing tradition on military non-alignment, but Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 ended Stockholm's 200 years of neutrality. Vladimir Putin's aggression also pushed Finland to join the alliance last year, and here's what the map of Europe looks like right now. NATO nations dominate geographically in the Baltic Sea. Signe Bergstaller is Sweden's ambassador to Canada, and she joins me now. Ambassador, it's good to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's official. It's taken a bit of time and some negotiations. How important is this membership to your country?
It is very important. It is a historical step for Sweden. As you mentioned, after more than 200 years of non-participation in a military alliance, Sweden has taken a decision to join the Western defense community. And it makes Sweden much safer, but we can also contribute to the security and stability of NATO by being a member of NATO.
Ending a centuries-long tradition of military non-alignment is no small thing. I mean, were there other factors behind it, or was it the invasion of Ukraine that really just tipped the decision scales for Sweden?
That definitely was what precipitated this, yes. I mean, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine has really deteriorated the security situation in our part of the world and in the Baltic Sea region. So it was, for us, yes, it was a very monumental shift, and we had to look after our own security interests. And this is a decision that has very broad support in the Swedish parliament and also among the Swedish general public.
So it's official now. The accession, I believe, is the technical term that's used. But not only joining the alliance, Sweden's also going to participate in the Latvian battle group that Canada leads, that you'll be deploying soldiers there. What can you tell us about the scope and scale of your participation in that particular operation?
Yes, so the decision or the announcement of Swedish intention to contribute with a reduced battalion to the enhanced forward presence of NATO in Latvia was already made beginning of January this year. But now, as a full member of NATO, we can actually start preparing for this contribution. So, yes, it will be coming in a short future, but and we will then be replacing the Danish contribution on this force, and yes, a reduced battalion size, so a couple of hundred Swedish soldiers.
Your country joins NATO at a very interesting time in the organization's history, because if you look at the response to Putin's invasion, it's never been more united and galvanized, you know, certainly in the last decade or so. But when you look at what's happening in the United States, for example, with the inability to get aid through, Viktor Orban met with Donald Trump today and said that the former president told him he would end the war in 24 hours by just not giving Ukraine any money. So you have these challenges inside the organization. It was the invasion of Ukraine that really was the tipping point for your country. How concerned are you right now when you see the backbone of the military support for Ukraine, the United States, unable to get an aid package through, and a front runner for president saying they would get out of it essentially entirely?
Well, I mean, at least for Sweden, I mean, it's very clear that, you know, we need to be there and support Ukraine for as long as it takes. So here, you know, we have a very similar view and position as Canada. And Sweden has been providing both military, economic, humanitarian, political support for Ukraine. And we see that we need to continue to support Ukraine because they are very courageously fighting not only for their own survival and freedom, but also they're fighting for our, you know, for our security in the rest of Europe. So for us, you know, I mean, it's very clear that, you know, we need to continue to support Ukraine, and that there needs to be a strong unity in the international community about this. So we will continue to push as much as we can, both bilaterally now, well, as a member of the EU, and now also as an ally of NATO, for this continued support to Ukraine, because there is so much at stake here.
Do you think people on this side of the Atlantic see this war with the same moral clarity that people in Europe do? When I've spoken to the Latvian defense minister last week, the Polish ambassador, the closer you are to Ukraine, the closer you are to Russia, the stronger you are on this in terms of your spending, what you're willing to sacrifice, and what you're willing to give. Do you think the North American security perimeter has made us a little bit, I don't know, lax on recognizing what's at stake in Ukraine as a population?
Well, I don't know, it's difficult for me to comment on that. I mean, I could just say for our own, from our own situation, I mean, yes, I mean, it is a very, existential threat to, the security of our region, and very much so we see that we need to continue to not only support Ukraine in their fight against Ukrainian aggression, but we also need to make sure that there is a strong international support to continue to push Russia, including through continued sanctions against Russia.
On another topic I wanted to ask you about, Sweden, like Canada last week, decided to resume funding for UNRWA, the UN relief agency for the Palestinian people. Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Ray, said they've seen an 8-page interim report on the investigation into the allegations. It's not an exoneration, but it's not a conviction. It's going to take more time, but the humanitarian need is just so great. Canada can't wait. What was Sweden's thought process on the decision to resume funding for UNRWA?
Well, I think it was very similar because, I mean, we see a very, very urgent humanitarian situation right now in Gaza. So it is key to get more humanitarian aid to the civilian population suffering in Gaza, and UNRWA, has the leading role here in providing assistance to the Palestinian people. So that's one part of it. I mean, that you just need to use all available channels to get humanitarian support to the suffering people, but also that we have received various commitments from UNRWA that they will increase their own internal controls when it comes to the aid provided. And we will, of course, continue to monitor UNRWA's use and spending of the funds. But for the moment, we will resume our spending with about 200 million Swedish krona, which amounts to about 26 million Canadian dollars.
Right. There's been a significant amount of political backlash against the Canadian government for its decision. How is this decision playing out in Sweden, in your sense?
I think that there is a lot of support for providing, more humanitarian assistance to the population in Gaza. But at the same time, Sweden has been very also strong in expressing our view that Israel has the right to defend itself after a terrorist attack by Hamas on 7 October. But here we are now facing this very grave humanitarian situation in Gaza, and that we also need to, help to alleviate.
Okay. Signe Bergstahler, Sweden's ambassador to Canada. It was very nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.